Hi, everybody. This is Granville D'Souza again. And how are you doing? I'm just wondering, how many of you have invested in a soft skills program, like a self-development program? Maybe you paid for something like a Tony Robbins program, which sometimes costs from $5,000 to $10,000. And after spending so much of money, you wondered, you came back home and you wondered to yourself, what did I gain from this? Sometimes the feeling can last quite a long time. It could last a week, sometimes it lasts 2 weeks. And then it dies down a little bit. That real good feeling of confidence, of conviction, just suddenly disappears. And you're wondering to yourself, where did all that money go? Where did all that results go? So there's a big difference between investing in a soft skills program and a hard skills program. So for example, if you go for a Word for Windows program, I think you can safely say after about 8 hours or 9 hours, you learned specific skills. You learn how to open a document, you know how to boot the computer, you know how to process a certain document. And then you come back and someone may just slap your hand and say, hey, go faster. And you can go faster. But that does not really happen with a soft skills program. But a lot of things do happen in the soft skills program because if you look at our attitudes, they have been built over time, over many, many years. Like if supposing you've gone through difficult experiences at home and maybe one of your parents were quite difficult with you, you could have grown up with some difficult memories. It's not something you can erase overnight. Over the last 20 years, I've spent a lot of time with Tony Robbins, with Bob Proctor, with even Richard Bandler doing neuro-linguistic programming. And I must admit, there were many times when I came back, I asked myself, did I remember what I truly went through? There were many different kinds of activities, there were exercises, there were lots of discussions, many stories told, and I must admit I expressed myself pretty well during the programs, thinking maybe if I told my story, somebody else told a similar story, I could find a lot of connection with those stories and perhaps work on myself and my belief systems. So again, it all worked out pretty well for about 2 weeks or sometimes even 3 weeks. And then I believe I would have forgotten much of it. And I looked back after about 15 years and 20 years and asked myself, where did it all go? And I believe when you do invest in a soft skills program, it does go into your unconscious. It goes into your mind, it goes into your body, it translates into energy, and of course it changes the way you feel. And when these things happen, a lot of the changes take place sometimes at a very unconscious level, and it does happen at an unconscious level until it gets conscious. When it does get conscious, you start to be very clear about the changes that have been happening in your life. Now, I have to admit that after about 15 or 20 years, and I don't mean it takes about 15 to 20 years to change your life. Sometimes all it takes is to be able to address one specific problem you're having and maybe listen to one or two people having similar problems and working through some different exercises before you start to see changes. So it does not have to take a long time. It's just that I got pretty obsessed with learning, and I went for course upon course upon course, and I just never stopped. So again, just remember, you don't have to go through many. Sometimes all it takes is one. So for me, I must admit, I'm very clear about my purpose now. After setting so many goals, I'm very clear about what I'm supposed to do. I'm pretty clear about what I'm supposed to do from today right up to the next 10 years, and I believe even for the next 20 years. Someone who's clear about their purpose knows exactly why they do what they do, and they wake up with a lot of excitement, they wake up with a lot of energy, and they're there to make a difference. So I believe if your purpose is clear, you'll know exactly what you're supposed to do, and you'll get up with a lot of energy, a lot of excitement, and you will go out there and do what you truly want to do with love and intention. How many of you talk to yourself? And if you're wondering, am I schizophrenic or something? I believe that we speak to ourselves almost every moment. In fact, from research, you'll find out that we actually speak to ourselves 3/4 of the day. Now, I think what we need to ask ourselves is the quality of that conversation good quality conversation, or is it not bad or not good quality conversation? And it's really very difficult to know, because the thing is, this conversation is really happening inside of you. So one way to really find out whether you are speaking good stuff to yourself or not so good stuff about yourself is to ask yourself how you feel. Now, we have to learn to label these feelings. We have to learn to understand why we feel what we feel and how did we get to feel what we feel. Of course, these things are all happening inside of us. They may seem quite fluffy, quite esoteric stuff. But, you know, in the programs which I do, we really examine these things, because this is what really does dig into our lives. It does dig into our past stories. It does dig into our past events. And it helps to establish whether some of the scripts that we've gone through has been actually running our lives. And whether you like it or not, it would have been running your life until you decide to tell a different story. And one way you can tell a different story is to start living a different story. So perhaps we should start tuning in and asking ourselves, our belief systems, our thoughts, generating positive feelings for us to live productive lives.